Moderation is the talk of the town in the Minecraft Java community right now. Or more accurately, it's a conversation of outrage. Players are expressing anger and frustration, feelings that I personally do not share. But I do understand them. Once again, we can talk about vocal minorities who shout the loudest, but moderations and bans are always a hot topic wherever they arise. This topic is bound to stir controversy, something Microsoft and Mojang are hopefully prepared for. This also comes right after an update that has been criticized over the communication around its features, or lack of, depending on what you are hoping for. I expressed this perspective in my recent mild update video. The name was just a pun, a little bit of fun. I do think the update is fantastic, but the purpose of that video was to highlight the expectations and promises that have been created to promote the update and engage the community many months before its actual release. And by the way, that video has now surpassed 1 million views. It was great to see such a different style of video so warmly embraced on this channel. I'm going to be making more, so you know how us YouTubers do, right? Go and hit that subscribe button to catch more content like this. Anyways, I'm getting off topic now, so how about I bring you up to speed on what all this controversy is about. With 1.19, specifically snapshot 22W19A, cryptographic signed chat was introduced, a way to verify and authenticate that chat messages were directly sent from a player and not tampered with. This was communicated with very little context, just an explanation that it was being implemented and a bunch of technical jargon to go along with it. It seems this was to set the stage for a universal moderation system, the ability for Mojang to ban players that violate its community standards briefing from both realms and multiplayer servers, regardless of what the rules are on an individual community server. But we can go back further. The beginnings of these changes started in October of 2020 when Mojang first announced the account migration to Microsoft or MSA accounts. At the time, this too sparked complaints and annoyances from players, citing worries of migration issues and data collection on Microsoft's behalf. It's been cited by some that this was a deception, the statement reading that nothing will change other than logging into the game. Of course, this simply refers to the phasing out notion that often gets thrown around by the Java community who think Microsoft want to get rid of it. Just by reading the very beginning of the same article, you can see the moderation, aka safety features, were in mind. And oddly at the bottom is a reference to admins who fear these reporting tools may be used and abused against them. This is all before any of these moderation tools had actually been announced. However, there were mentions of improved parental controls and chat blocking. With hindsight, we can now see this was the beginning of player chat reporting. Some people called this out at the time, and perhaps that's because the Bedrock edition of the game already had these moderation tools built in. So maybe we should have seen this coming, but that's not on the community to anticipate. The culprit here, once again, seems to be communication. Vague notions of player safety and parental controls came about with little in the way of a clear picture of what was intended. Introducing features through snapshots and technical jargon with a lack of explanation for their intended purpose is another disappointment when it comes to informing the community of their intentions. However, now we have some form of communication through the community standards article, and much of this is reasonable, asking for players to treat each other with respect, wishing to create a quote, positive, safe and enjoyable place for everyone. This is all good by me. There is even advice to think twice when sharing personal information online, a topic that young internet users need to be educated on and perhaps lack. Along with many positives, sits something a bit odd in this article that people who don't like these changes are going to latch onto. Quote, also, all caps is often read as yelling, and yelling at someone is usually not very nice. Yeah, a bit odd. Caps can also express excitement too, right? I know I've used caps in moments of excitement plenty of times in a Minecraft chat. So we are about to get to the crux of the issue, but first let's have a look at the player reporting screen and its categories. None of these give me cause for concern. The concern itself is the content listed here being openly discussed in game. I believe Microsoft have the best of intentions and you can see them laid out here in the categories. These are the sorts of concerning content many parents will want to shield young players from. And no, Minecraft is not the final frontier of free speech. Surely we do need safe spaces in society as much as we need places for free speech to flourish. But a game with such a vast player base of young impressionable people is probably not the place. And this brings me to the real issue of moderation. It's an unwinnable game. There are always losers and perceived injustices, dramas will emerge and opinions will divide, but there is a matter of perspective that is not being seen here. Our worries, concerns and vitriol are funneled to the middle grey area, and let's face it, the grey area is likely the smallest where the edge cases that rile people up reside. We don't consider the black and the white, how many obviously false claims are thrown out, and how many people are protected from hate, abuse and harm. Is what's left over the price that we pay? Sure, there will be horror stories of abuse where players are falsely accused and banned, messages sent in-game that are misunderstood and lacking context, but these will likely be the minutiae. I'm sure the moderation teams will be well trained, well informed, and making good decisions to a high standard. This means that a lot of incidences would never raise an eyebrow. However, it's the fear of any decision that does that causes much of this outrage. And I will say, there is one decision made here I'm not so keen on. Privately run servers are automatically opted into this system with no way out, and obviously there will be some adult communities who wish to discuss issues not suited to the community standards. It seems reasonable to say this is unfair, but also consider that in a game of Minecraft, everyone is just a name and a skin. Who knows who sits behind the keyboard? Some communities may be adult, but how can they verify the ages of all participants? It is a troubled area, and change is coming. If these communities wish to continue having open discussion, they will become vulnerable to abuse too, as an adult conversation can easily fit into a handful of these categories. If reported by a person with a grudge or ill intent, it's likely to result in a ban. Another concern I have are the grave consequences. A permanent ban from multiplayer, both realms and servers. It would be nice to have some clarification on what can be expected. So let me ask you this, is the Bedrock community outraged by their moderation system? I barely heard a whisper, but that's not the point. If the moderation there was conducted poorly, unfairly, and many cases were mishandled, then surely we would have heard something about it. I think what Microsoft is trying to do is ultimately for a good cause. Moderation is an essential part of managing a healthy community, and it's often the worry of it being mishandled that drives our fears. But what's my conclusion having thought this through and reading online discussion? This will most likely blow over with time and become old news. Yes, there will be some horror stories of unjust bans from time to time, but ultimately, all the clear-cut cases will not be talked about. Imagine any game, community or online space and picture them introducing a moderation system where one was absent. It has and always will spark this sort of reaction, driven by fears of how it's used. Moderation is an unwinnable game when it comes to the edge cases, and once again, Mojang and Microsoft have not handled communicating this rollout very well. But with the knowledge of how moderation is received, maybe this quiet, subdued approach was the plan all along. Whatever path they picked, these concerns would have arose. Personally, I do not fear this moderation system. I'm more concerned for the spirit of the community and how this negativity could compound with that of the so-called mild update. Those are my thoughts and I'd love to hear yours, so comment below and leave a like before heading out of here to support the channel. Peace out.